A German Shepherd suddenly appeared in the middle of a busy highway, blocking an ambulance racing to save a life. Every driver expected the dog to move when they honked, but this extraordinary animal did something that defied everything we know about canine behavior. With precious seconds ticking away and a patient's life hanging in the balance, the paramedics faced an impossible choice. What happened next would challenge everything experts thought they knew about the bond between humans and animals, and prove that some heroes don't wear badges. What you're about to witness will completely change how you see the intelligence and loyalty of dogs forever. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this story will restore your faith in the extraordinary connections that exist all around us. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across Highway 87, turning the asphalt into a ribbon of gold that cuts through the heart of Pine Ridge Valley. The air carries that distinct mountain chill that arrives just as autumn surrenders to winter, crisp enough to sting your lungs, mixed with the scent of wood smoke drifting down from chimneys and the faint diesel exhaust of idling engines. Rex stands perfectly still in the center of the northbound lane, his powerful frame silhouetted against the dying light. At 7 years old, this German Shepherd carries himself with the quiet dignity of a dog who has seen both the worst and best of human nature. His amber eyes, intelligent, unwavering, scan the growing line of vehicles with an intensity that makes seasoned drivers uncomfortable. Those unusual scars on his left flank, jagged white lines cutting through his dark coat, tell a story no one in Pine Ridge has ever heard. "We've got a code red cardiac arrest, and this damn dog won't move," Sarah Martinez mutters into her radio, her knuckles white as she grips the steering wheel of the ambulance. 15 years as a paramedic has taught her that every second counts, that the difference between life and death often comes down to minutes, sometimes less. Behind her, the cardiac monitor beeps steadily, marking time for a 73-year-old man whose heart is fighting a losing battle. Her partner Jake, barely 6 months out of training, leans forward in the passenger seat. "Should I call animal control? Maybe they can." Animal control's 20 minutes out on a good day. Sarah cuts him off, watching Rex through the windshield. "Something's wrong here. Dogs don't just stand in traffic for no reason." 3 cars back, Dr. Emily Watson recognizes the signs immediately. As Pine Ridge's only emergency veterinarian, she's seen enough animal behavior to know that Rex isn't being stubborn or confused. His posture, the way he keeps glancing toward the mountain road that leads to Maple Street, the subtle tremor in his hindquarters, this is a dog in psychological distress. What nobody in that growing line of traffic knows is that Rex has been making this exact journey for 48 hours straight. Every 6 hours, like clockwork, he appears on Highway 87, blocking traffic for exactly 17 minutes before returning up the mountain road. The local sheriff received 3 complaints yesterday, but each time Deputy Morrison arrived, Rex was gone. Thomas Chen found Rex 3 years ago on a night much like this one. Cold, with winter threatening in the air. The puppy was nothing but ribs and fur, abandoned in a roadside ditch with injuries that suggested he'd been thrown from a moving vehicle. Thomas, who had just buried his wife of 42 years, saw something in those amber eyes that mirrored his own grief. "You and me, we understand each other," Thomas had whispered that first night as Rex lay curled on the old paramedic's couch. "We both know what it's like to be left behind." For 3 years, they were inseparable. Thomas, drawing on decades of emergency medical training, taught Rex commands that went far beyond typical obedience. Rex learned to recognize the signs of Thomas's diabetes-related episodes, to fetch his medication, to even dial 911 using a specially modified phone. In return, Rex gave Thomas something he thought he'd lost forever: purpose. But Thomas Chen hasn't been seen by his neighbors for 2 days. Mrs. Patterson, who lives next door, noticed that their daily 3 p.m. walks had stopped. The mailbox hadn't been emptied. The newspaper lay soggy on the front porch. Sheriff Morrison finally arrives, his patrol car's red and blue lights painting the surrounding pine trees in alternating colors. At 58, Morrison has seen his share of unusual situations, but something about this scene sets his teeth on edge. He approaches Rex slowly, noting how the dog's ears track his movement while his eyes remain fixed on something up the mountain road. "Easy there, boy," Morrison says, his hand resting on his radio. "What's got you so worked up?" Rex doesn't growl or bare his teeth. Instead, he takes 3 deliberate steps toward the mountain road, looks back at the growing crowd of vehicles, then returns to his position. The message is clear to anyone paying attention. Follow me. Dr. Watson has seen enough. She pulls her SUV onto the shoulder and approaches on foot, her veterinary bag in hand. "Sheriff, this dog isn't being aggressive or random. This is classic stress-related displacement behavior, but with purpose. He's trying to lead us somewhere." The temperature drops another degree as the sun disappears behind the mountain peaks. Rex's breath becomes visible in small puffs, but he doesn't move. His internal clock, honed by 3 years of unwavering routine with Thomas, tells him it's been too long since his last meal, since his last walk, since he heard the voice that meant safety and love. "My patient's crashing," Sarah calls out from the ambulance, her voice carrying the edge that comes when training meets desperation. "If this dog doesn't move in the next 5 minutes, we're gonna lose him." But Rex has already lost the most important thing in his world. What he doesn't know yet is that his vigil, his desperate attempt to bring help up that mountain road, is about to become the key to saving not just Thomas Chen, but the cardiac patient whose life hangs in the balance in the ambulance behind him. Because sometimes the most intelligent response to an impossible situation looks exactly like standing perfectly still in the middle of a highway, trusting that eventually someone will understand what you're trying to say. The sound of car horns becomes a symphony of frustration, echoing off the mountain walls. Rex doesn't flinch as the noise grows louder, more aggressive. His ears remain perfectly upright, focused on something beyond human perception, while his amber eyes dart between the forest road and the line of vehicles that now stretches back nearly a mile. Inside the ambulance, the cardiac monitor's rhythm becomes increasingly erratic. Sarah watches the digital readout climb to dangerous levels, blood pressure dropping, heart rate spiking, oxygen saturation falling with each passing second. Her patient, a 73-year-old grandfather whose name she doesn't even know yet, has maybe 8 minutes before his damaged heart gives up entirely. "Rex, please," she whispers through the windshield, surprising herself with the gentleness in her voice. After 15 years of emergency medicine, Sarah Martinez has learned to compartmentalize emotion, to focus on protocols and procedures rather than the human cost of delay. But something about this dog's unwavering determination touches a place she thought she'd sealed off years ago. Jake checks his watch for the 10th time in 2 minutes. "Sarah, we need to make a choice. We can't save everyone." But Rex makes a sound that stops them both cold. Not a bark or a growl, but a low, keening whimper that speaks of desperate need. He takes 3 steps toward the mountain road, looks back at the ambulance, and returns to his position. The message couldn't be clearer if he could speak. Someone needs help up there. Behind them, the traffic situation deteriorates rapidly. A delivery truck driver jumps from his cab, storming toward Rex with the kind of misplaced anger that comes from feeling powerless. "I've got a schedule to keep. Move, you stupid mutt." Sheriff Morrison intercepts him with a firm hand on his chest. "Sir, I need you to return to your vehicle. We're handling this." But Morrison's radio crackles with a new crisis, a second emergency call. An elderly woman has fallen at Pine Ridge Manor, potential hip fracture, possible head trauma. The dispatcher's voice carries the strain of impossible decisions. No other ambulance is available within 30 miles, and the volunteer fire department's EMTs are already committed to a structure fire across town. Dr. Watson approaches Rex from a different angle. her veterinary training guiding her movements. She's seen this behavior before in her clinic, the desperate pacing of a mother dog whose puppies are in danger, the frantic whining of a pet whose owner is having a medical emergency. Rex's posture, the tension in his shoulders, the way he keeps checking the road. This isn't stubborn defiance. This is a dog trying to save someone's life. "Sheriff," she calls out, "this dog is exhibiting classic alerting behavior. I've seen it in service animals trained to detect seizures, diabetic episodes, even heart attacks. He's not blocking traffic out of confusion. He's trying to guide us to an emergency." The temperature continues to drop as darkness creeps down the mountainside. Rex's breath comes in short puffs now, and Dr. Watson notices the slight tremor in his back legs, a sign of exhaustion that means he's been doing this for hours, possibly days. Still, he doesn't move from his position. Sarah makes a decision that goes against every protocol she's ever learned. She shuts off the ambulance engine and steps out into the cold mountain air. The sudden silence feels profound after the constant noise of sirens and horns. In that quiet moment, she can hear what Rex has been trying to tell them. The sound of wind through pine trees, yes, but something else. Something that makes her paramedic instincts fire like alarm bells. "Jake, bring the portable equipment," she says, her voice carrying the authority of someone who's made impossible choices before. "We're following the dog." Rex's entire body language changes the moment Sarah steps toward the mountain road. His tail doesn't wag. This isn't about happiness or excitement. Instead, he moves with the focused intensity of a working dog who's finally been understood. He leads them exactly 50 yards up the winding dirt path, then stops at a mailbox that reads, T. Chen. The house sits back from the road, a modest cabin surrounded by towering pines. Every window is dark except one, a faint glow from what appears to be the kitchen. Rex paws at the front door, whimpering with an urgency that makes Sarah's pulse quicken. "Thomas Chen," Sheriff Morrison reads from his notes. "Retired paramedic, widower, lives alone. Haven't seen him for..." The sound of glass breaking comes from inside the house, followed by a weak voice calling for help. Rex barks once, sharp and commanding, then looks directly at Sarah with eyes that seem to say, "Now do you understand?" But as Sarah reaches for the door handle, her radio crackles with Jake's panicked voice from the ambulance. "Sarah, our patient's going into cardiac arrest. I need you back here now." She freezes, hand on the doorknob, torn between two medical emergencies and the impossible mathematics of triage. Save the patient in the ambulance whose time is running out, or investigate what Rex has led them to discover. The choice she makes in the next 30 seconds will determine whether her years of training and protocols matter more than the desperate intelligence of a dog who's been trying to tell them something critical for nearly 3 days. Rex sits beside the door. No longer the frantic animal blocking traffic, but a professional working dog who's completed his mission. His amber eyes hold steady on Sarah's face, and in that moment, she realizes that sometimes the most advanced medical training in the world is no match for the simple, desperate love of a dog who refuses to let his family die alone. The radio crackles again, more urgent now. Her patient's life hangs in seconds, not minutes. That's when Sarah Martinez makes a decision that will either save 2 lives or cost them both. The sound Sarah hears through her radio changes everything. A flat, continuous tone that every paramedic dreads. Her patient has flatlined. 15 years of training scream at her to run back to the ambulance, to begin CPR, to follow every protocol that might restart a human heart. But Rex is already moving toward the forest, his powerful frame disappearing into the shadows between towering pines, pausing only to look back with eyes that plead more desperately than any human voice ever could. Time fractures into impossible pieces. Jake's voice crackles through the radio, panic bleeding through static. The patient needs immediate intervention. Every second without chest compressions reduces the chance of survival. Sarah's hand grips the emergency kit so tightly her knuckles turn white against the red plastic, and for a moment that stretches like eternity, she stands paralyzed between two dying people. Then Rex barks once, sharp, commanding, urgent, and Sarah makes a choice that defies every rule she's ever learned. She follows the dog into the darkness. The forest floor crunches beneath their feet, frozen pine needles and dead leaves creating a carpet that gives way with each step. Rex moves with purpose through terrain that would challenge experienced hikers, weaving between massive tree trunks as if following an invisible path carved by instinct and desperate love. The temperature drops with each step deeper into the woods, and Sarah's breath comes in sharp bursts that burn her lungs. Behind them, Jake's voice grows more frantic on the radio. The patient's condition deteriorates with each passing second, but Rex doesn't slow down. He leads them deeper into terrain that ambulance stretchers were never meant to navigate, through undergrowth that tears at Sarah's uniform and branches that grab at her equipment bag. Then the ground simply ends. Rex stops at the edge of a ravine that drops 15 feet through jagged rocks and exposed roots. At the bottom, barely visible in the dying light, lies a figure so still that Sarah's first instinct is to assume the worst. But Rex whimpers, not the desperate sound he made on the highway, but something softer, more hopeful. He knows something she doesn't. Thomas Chen lies crumpled at the base of the ravine, his body positioned at an angle that suggests he fell hard and couldn't get back up. His skin has taken on the waxy pallor of severe hypothermia, and his breathing is so shallow, it's barely detectable. But it's there. After 2 days in near-freezing temperatures, somehow, impossibly, it's there. Sarah begins her descent without thinking, muscle memory and adrenaline guiding her down the treacherous slope. Loose stones scatter beneath her feet and thorny branches tear at her hands, but none of that matters now. She reaches Thomas and immediately begins assessment. Weak pulse, critically low body temperature, signs of dehydration and exposure, but alive. Miraculously, stubbornly alive. Above her, Rex paces the edge of the ravine, no longer the frantic animal who blocked traffic, but a working dog who has successfully completed the most complex rescue mission imaginable. For 2 days, he tried everything he could think of to bring help to this exact spot. He blocked the main road because he knew emergency vehicles used that route. He chose the timing when paramedics would be most likely to respond. He led them to the only people with the skills and equipment to save his owner's life. Jake appears at the top of the ravine, dragging a rescue stretcher and looking like he's seen a ghost. He takes one look at the scene below and understands immediately why Rex fought so hard to bring them here. The cardiac patient in the ambulance was beyond saving. Sarah's training tells her that the moment she heard that flatline tone. But Thomas Chen, hypothermic and injured but still breathing, still has a chance. As they work to stabilize Thomas for transport, Sarah feels something shift inside her chest. Not the mechanical precision she's cultivated over 15 years of emergency medicine, but something warmer, more human. She realizes she's been so focused on protocols and procedures that she's forgotten the most important part of her job. Listening. Really listening. Not just to radio chatter and patient vitals, but to the desperate communication of a dog who knew his owner was dying and refused to let that happen quietly. Thomas's eyes flutter open as they secure him to the stretcher. His first word is barely a whisper, but it's clear enough. Rex. The dog's entire body trembles with relief as he nuzzles against his owner's face, the reunion playing out in the growing darkness of the forest floor. They transport Thomas up from the ravine with a coordination that feels choreographed by something larger than training. Each rope pull, each careful step, each moment of stabilization flows together like a dance between species that speaks to the deepest connections between humans and the animals who choose to love us. By the time they reach the ambulance, Thomas's vital signs have stabilized enough for transport. Rex jumps into the ambulance without invitation. positioning himself where he can maintain contact with Thomas while staying out of Sarah's way. No one suggests he should be left behind. As the ambulance pulls away from Highway 87, Sarah looks back to see the line of cars that waited through this entire ordeal beginning to move again. She'll never know most of their names, but she knows they witnessed something that changed how she understands her work, her purpose, and the intelligence of love when it refuses to accept defeat. Thomas Chen will survive his ordeal, though he'll carry the physical reminders for the rest of his life. But Rex saved more than one life that night. He saved Sarah's faith in listening to the impossible, and in trusting that sometimes the most sophisticated rescue operation looks exactly like a dog who won't move from the middle of a highway until someone finally understands what he's trying to say. 3 months later, Thomas Chen walks slowly but steadily down the same stretch of Highway 87, where Rex once stood like a sentinel against impossible odds. His recovery has been remarkable. The hypothermia left him with some nerve damage in his left hand and a persistent cough that flares up in cold weather. But the doctors call him a miracle case. What they don't understand is that the miracle began 48 hours before anyone found him, when a 7-year-old German Shepherd decided that love was stronger than protocol. Rex trots beside him now, no longer the desperate animal blocking traffic, but wearing a bright red vest emblazoned with Pine Ridge Emergency Services, honorary member. The vest was Sheriff Morrison's idea, after the story spread through local news and then exploded across social media. The footage from that night, shaky cell phone video of Rex leading paramedics into the forest, has been viewed over 2 million times, spawning countless discussions about animal intelligence and the bonds between species. Sarah Martinez pulls up in her ambulance, not responding to an emergency this time, but making her weekly check on Thomas. The relationship between these three has evolved into something none of them expected. Sarah, who once lived by rigid protocols and medical textbooks, now carries treats for Rex in her medical bag, and has developed an entirely new approach to emergency response that considers animal behavior as a potential diagnostic tool. The Pine Ridge Emergency Services Department has implemented what they call the Rex Protocol, a series of procedures for situations where animals exhibit unusual behavior around potential medical emergencies. Sarah wrote the guidelines herself, drawing from consultations with Dr. Watson and animal behaviorists from the State University. 3 other rescue dogs in the county have already been credited with alerting emergency services to people in distress. Their handlers now trained to recognize the same focused, determined communication that Rex demonstrated. Dr. Watson's veterinary practice has transformed as well. She now runs a program called Guardian Angels with 4 Paws, training dogs to recognize and respond to medical emergencies. The program has a waiting list of 6 months, with families from across the region bringing their pets to learn the same alerting behaviors that Rex seemed to develop naturally through his bond with Thomas. Thomas runs his fingers through Rex's fur, feeling the familiar scars on his flank that tell a story of survival that mirrors his own. Those scars, which once represented abandonment and trauma, now feel like medals of honor, proof that both of them understand what it means to be left behind and what it means to refuse to let that happen to someone else. The local newspaper has designated Rex as Pine Ridge's Citizen of the Year, and the mayor commissioned a small sign that now stands at the exact spot where Rex made his stand. It reads simply, "Rex's Crossing, where love refuses to give up." Tourists occasionally stop to take photos, but for the locals, it serves as a daily reminder that intelligence and communication take forms they never learned to recognize. On quiet evenings, Thomas tells Rex about his late wife, Margaret, sharing stories he'd never spoken aloud during those dark months after her funeral. Rex listens with the same focused attention he gave to the sounds from the ravine. And Thomas realizes that grief shared becomes something different, not lighter, exactly, but more manageable, like a weight carried by 4 legs instead of 2. The scientific community has taken notice as well. Rex's behavior has been studied by researchers at 3 universities, contributing to a growing body of evidence about the sophisticated problem-solving abilities of domestic dogs. One researcher noted that Rex's actions demonstrated complex sequential reasoning, emotional regulation under extreme stress, and interspecies communication at a level previously unrecognized in canine behavioral studies. But the most profound change happens in the small moments that no camera captures. When Sarah responds to calls now, she finds herself listening differently, not just to the words people speak, but to the spaces between words, to the behavior of pets who seem agitated, to the subtle signs that someone might need help in ways that don't fit standard emergency protocols. Her success rate has improved dramatically. And she credits Rex with teaching her that the most important medical tool isn't in her equipment bag. It's the ability to pay attention to communication that doesn't follow human rules. On this particular afternoon, as Thomas and Rex complete their daily walk, something familiar happens. Rex stops suddenly, his ears perked, his body tense with the same focused attention that saved Thomas's life. But this time, instead of panic, Thomas feels a surge of pride. He pulls out his cell phone and dials Sarah's number, knowing that Rex has just identified another emergency, another person who needs help. The call comes in as a welfare check on elderly Mrs. Patterson, Thomas's neighbor. Rex leads them to her backyard, where they find her conscious but unable to get up after falling while gardening. This time, there's no dramatic rescue from a ravine, no life or death race against time. Just a dog who has learned that his intelligence and love can be directed toward protecting an entire community, and humans who have learned to trust that intelligence even when it challenges everything they thought they knew about communication. As the ambulance drives away with Mrs. Patterson safely aboard, Thomas looks down at Rex, whose tail wags with the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. The highway stretches ahead of them, no longer a place of desperate stands and blocked traffic, but a path that leads home, to a house where 2 survivors have learned that love, when it refuses to give up, can teach an entire community how to listen to the voices they never knew were speaking. That night, Rex sleeps peacefully beside Thomas's bed, his job complete, but his vigilance never ending. Tomorrow will bring new walks, new opportunities to watch over the people he's claimed as his responsibility. Because once you've saved someone's life by refusing to move from the middle of a highway, every day after that becomes a chance to save someone else. Rex's story teaches us that intelligence and love aren't limited by species. Sometimes the most important messages come from those who can't speak our language. This incredible rescue proves that when we're willing to listen, even the most unlikely heroes can guide us toward saving lives. The next time you see an animal acting strangely, remember Rex's story. Sometimes what appears to be obstinate behavior is actually desperate communication. Look closer, listen harder, and trust that the bond between humans and animals can create miracles when we need them most. If this story moved you the way it moved me, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. We share incredible stories of unexpected heroes every week. In the comments, tell us about times when animals in your life showed extraordinary intelligence or love. Share this video with someone who needs to believe in the power of the human-animal bond. Next week, we'll explore another impossible rescue that proves love truly knows no boundaries.